This is the story of Luna, a 34-year-old nurse from Texas who dedicated her life to caring for others, but often struggled with questions about her own purpose. She never thought much about faith or the deeper meaning of life, until the day she died. After a sudden medical emergency left her lifeless for several minutes, Luna claims she experienced something extraordinary. She says she met Jesus, who revealed a shocking truth about a glowing M mark on her hands, a mark that represents something far greater than she ever imagined. Her experience changed her life, and it might change yours too. It was a warm spring morning, and Luna had just finished a long overnight shift at the hospital. She loved her job as a nurse, but it came with its challenges. Late nights, demanding patience, and the emotional toll of watching people suffer. That morning, she was particularly exhausted. The hospital had been busier than usual, and she hadn't eaten or slept much in the past 24 hours. As she walked to her car, she felt a strange tightness in her chest. At first, she brushed it off as stress or fatigue. Just another long shift, she thought. But the feeling didn't go away. It grew stronger, spreading to her arms and neck. By the time she got behind the wheel, she knew something was wrong. Her breathing became labored, and the world around her started to blur. She managed to pull over to the side of the road, her heart pounding as if it were trying to break free from her chest. Then, everything went black. Luna's car sat idling on the shoulder of the road as other drivers passed by, unaware that the young woman inside was fighting for her life. A good Samaritan noticed her slumped over the steering wheel and called 911. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but by then, Luna's heart had stopped. For the next several minutes, she was clinically dead. But Luna wasn't gone. She would later describe those minutes as the most vivid and transformative experience of her life. Luna's first sensation after everything went dark was an overwhelming sense of peace. The pain and exhaustion that had consumed her moments before were gone. She felt weightless, as though she were floating above herself. When she opened her eyes, or what felt like her eyes, she found herself in a place that defied explanation. The world around her was filled with light, but it wasn't like sunlight or artificial light. It was soft, warm, and alive, wrapping her in a sense of love and comfort. Colors she had never seen before shimmered in the air, and there was a faint hum, like the sound of a gentle melody carried on the wind. She felt no fear, no confusion, only a deep sense of belonging. I must be dreaming, Luna thought at first. But as she looked around, she realized this was unlike any dream she had ever had. The sensations were too real, too vivid. She felt as if she were seeing the world for the first time, through eyes unclouded by doubt or fear. Then she noticed a presence approaching her. It wasn't walking. It simply appeared, radiating love and warmth. Luna somehow knew who it was before the figure even spoke. "Jesus," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Jesus stood before her, a figure of light and compassion. His presence was both humbling and comforting, as if he could see every part of her. Her joys, her sorrows, her fears, and loved her completely anyway. Luna felt an overwhelming urge to fall to her knees, but Jesus reached out a hand to stop her. "You don't need to kneel," he said, his voice gentle yet powerful. "You are here because you have questions, and it is time for you to understand." Luna was struck by the kindness in his words. She had always seen herself as flawed, as someone who fell short in so many ways. Yet here he was, looking at her with a love so profound it brought her to tears. "I don't understand," Luna said. "Why am I here? What's happening to me?" Jesus smiled, a smile that seemed to light up the entire realm around them. "You are here to see what you've forgotten," he said. "You carry something important, but you have not yet recognized it." As Jesus spoke, Luna felt a warmth in her hands. She looked down and saw something that left her speechless. On the palms of her hands was a glowing mark, shaped like the letter M. The light from the mark wasn't harsh. It was soft and golden, pulsing gently as if it were alive. "What is this?" she asked, holding her hands up for Jesus to see. "This," Jesus said, "is your mark. Everyone has it, though not everyone sees it. It represents your mission and the mercy you are called to carry into the world." Luna was stunned. She had never considered herself particularly special, just an ordinary nurse doing her job. But Jesus explained that the mark wasn't about being extraordinary. It was about embracing her unique purpose. "The M stands for more than you think," Jesus continued. "It is a reminder of your mission, your mercy, and your connection to me. It shines brightest when you live with love and compassion." As Luna listened, Jesus began to show her visions of her life. She saw moments where her mark glowed brightly, times when she had cared for patients with genuine compassion, comforted grieving families, or offered a kind word to a struggling coworker. In those moments, her mission had been clear, and she had fulfilled it without even realizing it. But then the visions changed. Luna saw times when her mark dimmed, when she had acted out of frustration or indifference. She remembered days when she was too tired or overwhelmed to give her best, moments when she had doubted whether her efforts even mattered. Jesus placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch filling her with reassurance. "Your mission is not about being perfect," he said. "It is about striving to love, even in imperfection. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, brightens your mark and brings you closer to your purpose." Luna felt a deep sense of clarity. The mark wasn't just a symbol, it was a guide, a reminder of the love and mercy she was meant to share. And in that moment, she understood that her life had meaning, not because of grand achievements, but because of the quiet, everyday ways she touched the lives of others. As Luna stood in awe of the glowing M on her hands, Jesus turned her attention to a series of vivid images that unfolded like scenes from a movie. "Now you must see the challenges," he said. The peaceful realm she stood in faded, replaced by the familiar sights and sounds of earth. Luna felt like she was floating above the world, watching people's lives play out below her. She saw families sitting together but not speaking, each person lost in their own world of screens and distractions. She saw people walking past one another on busy city streets, their eyes avoiding contact, their expressions blank. But most striking were the moments of open conflict, arguments, shouting matches, even physical confrontations over differences in race, religion, politics, and wealth. "This is what happens," Jesus said, "when people forget their mission. They lose sight of the connection they have to one another. They let fear, pride, and greed dim their light." Luna felt a pang of sadness. She had seen some of these struggles in her own life. Patients who had no one to visit them, families torn apart by misunderstandings, and people who seemed weighed down by anger and pain. She realized that the challenges weren't just global, they were deeply personal. Jesus continued, "These challenges are not punishments. They are opportunities. Each one is a chance for someone to embrace their mission, to let their mark shine brighter. But too often, people choose division over love." The next vision Jesus showed Luna was of individuals making choices, small, everyday decisions that had profound effects. She saw a man rushing past a homeless person on the street, too busy to stop. But in the next scene, she saw another man pausing to offer food and a kind word. The difference in their marks was striking. The first man's hands were dim and lifeless, while the second man's marks glowed like a beacon. "Every choice you make matters," Jesus said. "Every moment is an opportunity to live your mission or to turn away from it. No one is perfect, but the effort to choose love over fear, kindness over indifference, is what keeps the light alive." Luna thought back to her own life. She remembered days when she had chosen compassion, staying late to comfort a grieving family, or going the extra mile for a patient in need. But she also remembered moments when she had been short-tempered or too exhausted to care. Jesus placed his hand over hers, and the warmth of his touch filled her with hope. "Your mark doesn't fade because you fail," he said. "It fades when you stop trying. Every new day is a chance to choose again." Next, Jesus took Luna on a deeply personal journey through her own life. It wasn't just a review of events. It was an experience that allowed her to see the impact of her actions from a higher perspective. She saw herself as a child, comforting her younger brother after he had fallen and scraped his knee. In that moment, her mark glowed brilliantly, even though she hadn't known it was there. The visions moved through her teenage years, showing moments of kindness and growth, but also times of insecurity and selfishness. One scene brought her to tears. She saw herself in college, walking past a classmate who was crying in the hallway. She had noticed but had been too preoccupied with her own problems to stop and ask if they were okay. In that moment, her mark dimmed. "Why didn't I stop?" Luna whispered, guilt washing over her. Jesus didn't condemn her. Instead, he showed her how she had learned from that moment. A few years later, as a young nurse, she had gone out of her way to sit with a patient who was scared and alone. Her mark had shone brightly that day, a reflection of the compassion she had chosen to show. "Every moment is a lesson," Jesus said. "Even your mistakes can lead to growth if you are willing to learn." The scene shifted, and Luna found herself standing in a vast, luminous hall. Shelves stretched endlessly in every direction, filled with glowing books that seemed to hum with energy. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice trembling with awe. "This is where every life is recorded," Jesus explained. "Each book tells the story of a soul, their choices, their mission, and the love they shared." Luna noticed that each book glowed at a different intensity. Some were radiant, their light spilling out like a waterfall, while others were dim, their glow barely visible. She felt drawn to one book in particular and realized it was her own. When she opened it, she saw not words, but images and feelings. Every moment of her life laid bare. She was surprised to see how many seemingly small acts of kindness had brightened her book. A smile given to a stranger, a word of encouragement to a coworker, a hug for a grieving friend. All these moments shone like stars. "I didn't know these little things mattered so much," she said. "They matter more than you can imagine," Jesus replied. "Your mission is not measured by grand gestures, but by the love you pour into each moment." As Luna took in the beauty of the hall, Jesus' tone grew somber. "Not everyone remembers their mission," he said. The vision shifted again, showing people whose marks had dimmed so much they were barely visible. These were people consumed by anger, greed, or despair, their focus turned inward instead of outward. Luna saw a woman who had once been a loving mother, but had become embittered by life's hardships. Her mark, once bright, now flickered weakly. She also saw a man who had achieved great wealth, but had ignored the needs of those around him. His hands were empty, the glow completely gone. "What can be done for them?" Luna asked, her heart aching for these lost souls. "They are never beyond hope," Jesus said, "but they must choose to remember. Every act of love, no matter how small, can reignite their light." Luna felt a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that her mission wasn't just about fulfilling her own potential, but also about helping others rediscover theirs. The vision left her determined to return to life and live with greater intention, knowing that her choices could inspire others to let their light shine. As Luna stood with Jesus in the glowing hall of life's records, he turned her attention to the marks on people's hands once again. "Faith and prayer," he said, "are what keep these marks alive and glowing." Luna felt a warmth in her chest as Jesus spoke, his words resonating deeply. She was shown people in moments of prayer, not grand displays, but quiet, personal moments of connection. A mother prayed over her child's bed, her mark glowing brighter with each whispered word. A man in his car prayed for guidance before a difficult meeting, and a faint light on his hands began to shine. Jesus explained, "Prayer is not about asking for things. It is about aligning your heart with your mission. When you pray, you open yourself to love, to purpose, and to the light I have placed within you." Luna felt humbled. She realized that her own prayers had often been hurried or distracted, more focused on what she wanted than on seeking guidance. She saw how her mark had dimmed during those times, but she also saw how it had brightened in moments when her prayers were genuine. Jesus reassured her, "It is never too late to turn to me. Every sincere prayer brings you closer to your mission and strengthens the light within you." Jesus then showed Luna another profound truth. The marks on people's hands were not isolated. They were interconnected, glowing brighter when people reached out to help one another. Luna watched as acts of kindness caused marks to shine, not just on the giver's hands, but on the hands of those who received the kindness. In one vision, a young woman helped an elderly man carry his groceries. As she reached out, her mark pulsed with light, and the man's mark began to glow as well. The connection was clear. Acts of love didn't just brighten one person's light, they illuminated the world. Jesus explained, "Your mission is not meant to be carried out alone. You are part of a greater design, where every act of kindness, every moment of connection, strengthens the whole." Luna felt a deep sense of responsibility but also hope. She realized that even small gestures, offering a smile, lending a hand, listening to someone in pain, had the power to brighten the marks of countless people. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up with love. Luna's heart swelled as Jesus turned her attention to a vision of Earth's potential future. She saw two paths laid out before humanity, one where people embraced their missions and another where they turned away from them. In the first vision, Luna saw communities filled with light. People worked together, their marks glowing brightly as they supported one another. Streets were lined with laughter, kindness was abundant, and challenges were met with collective strength. This was a future of unity, where humanity had chosen love over fear. But the second vision was darker. Luna saw people isolated, their marks faded or extinguished entirely. Division ruled, and kindness was replaced by suspicion and greed. The air felt heavy, and the world seemed to crumble under the weight of its own neglect. Jesus spoke softly but firmly, "The choice is always yours. Every act, every word, every thought contributes to one of these futures. The light in your hands is a gift, but it must be tended." Luna's resolve deepened. She understood that her mission wasn't just about her own life, but about contributing to a brighter future for everyone. Jesus then showed Luna how leadership could amplify or diminish the marks on people's hands. She saw leaders who inspired others, their marks glowing like beacons that lit up entire communities. These were not always presidents or officials. Sometimes they were teachers, pastors, or even parents. In one vision, Luna saw a small-town mayor organizing a food drive during a crisis. The mayor's mark was radiant, and as people came together to help, their marks began to glow as well. In another vision, she saw a single mother rallying her neighborhood to rebuild after a storm. Her determination ignited hope, and the light spread like wildfire. But Luna also saw the flip side. Leaders who sowed division and fear. Their marks were faint, their actions dimming the light in those who followed them. Leadership is not about power, Jesus said. It is about service. True leaders inspire others to embrace their mission. Luna realized that anyone could be a leader. It wasn't about titles or authority. It was about using your light to guide others toward love and unity. The next vision struck Luna deeply. She saw a man standing alone, his mark barely visible. He carried the weight of resentment and anger, and the burden seemed to dim his light further. But then, someone approached him, a woman he had wronged years ago. She reached out, her mark glowing brightly, and said, "I forgive you." In that instant, the man's mark began to shine. The light spread through him, and he broke down in tears. The weight he had carried for so long finally lifted. Luna felt her own heart swell as she realized the power of forgiveness, not just for the forgiven, but for the forgiver. Forgiveness restores the light, Jesus said. It frees both the giver and the receiver to live their mission more fully. Luna thought about the grudges she had held in her own life. She saw how they had dimmed her light, keeping her from connecting with others. In that moment, she resolved to let go of resentment and to seek forgiveness where it was needed. Jesus' tone grew more serious as he shifted Luna's attention to another vision. "Now you must see what happens when people forget their mission," he said. The light around them dimmed, and Luna felt a heaviness settle over her. She was shown a world where people ignored the purpose represented by their glowing marks. The vision was stark. Communities where people lived in isolation, consumed by their own fears and ambitions. She saw individuals who had once radiated light become shadowed, their marks barely visible. Arguments over trivial matters replaced meaningful connections. Greed and pride filled the void where love and kindness should have been. Jesus turned to Luna, his expression filled with both sadness and hope. "The world cannot thrive when people choose fear over love," he said. "But even in the darkest moments, there is always a chance to remember." Luna felt the weight of this warning. She understood that forgetting one's mission didn't happen all at once. It was a gradual process, the result of small daily choices to turn inward instead of reaching out. Jesus then showed Luna the transformative potential of education and open dialogue. "Words and knowledge are tools for illuminating the path," he said. Luna saw classrooms filled with children learning not just facts, but empathy, understanding, and the importance of their unique missions. In one vision, a teacher spoke to her students about the M marks, explaining that everyone carried a light meant to brighten the world. The children listened with wide-eyed wonder, their hands glowing faintly as they began to understand their own purpose. Luna was also shown the power of dialogue among adults. She saw community meetings where people with vastly different beliefs sat together, not to argue, but to listen. As they shared their stories, the light on their hands grew stronger, connecting them in ways they hadn't thought possible. "Communication opens the heart," Jesus said. "When people truly hear one another, they begin to see the marks on each other's hands." Luna realized how many opportunities for connection were lost in her own life because of misunderstandings or assumptions. She vowed to listen more, to engage in conversations that built bridges instead of walls. Jesus turned to Luna with a kind but firm gaze. "It is not yet your time," he said. "You have seen much, but now you must return and share what you have learned." Luna felt a wave of emotions, relief, gratitude, and a twinge of fear. She didn't know if she was ready to carry such a profound message back to the world. "How will I explain this?" she asked. "What if no one believes me?" Jesus smiled gently. "Your mission is not to convince, but to share. Those who are ready will listen, and their marks will glow brighter because of your words." As Jesus spoke, the light around her began to fade, and Luna felt herself being pulled backward. She gasped as she woke up in a hospital bed, the sound of monitors beeping around her. Her family stood nearby, their faces a mixture of relief and astonishment. "You're awake," her mother cried, tears streaming down her face. Luna's body ached, but her heart was filled with a sense of purpose she had never known before. She knew that her journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. Luna's experience changed her life in ways she couldn't have imagined. Once she recovered, she began sharing her story with anyone willing to listen. She spoke at churches, community centers, and hospitals, describing the glowing M mark and the mission it represented. At first, some people were skeptical, but Luna's sincerity and passion touched even the most doubtful hearts. Her words inspired others to reflect on their own lives, to look for opportunities to brighten their marks through acts of love and service. She also changed the way she approached her work as a nurse. Every patient she cared for became an opportunity to fulfill her mission. Whether it was holding a scared child's hand during a procedure or comforting a grieving family, Luna embraced each moment as a chance to share light. Luna's journey left her with a powerful message for the world. We all carry the light of love and purpose in our hands. It's not something you have to earn. It's already within you. But it's up to you to let it shine. She reminded people that the glowing M mark wasn't about perfection or grand gestures. It's in the small, everyday moments, she said. A kind word, a helping hand, a prayer for someone in need. These are the acts that brighten your mark and bring you closer to your mission. Luna also emphasized the importance of connection. Your light is strongest when it's shared, she said. We're not meant to walk this journey alone. Together, our marks can illuminate even the darkest paths. Her testimony became a beacon of hope for many, a reminder that no matter how lost or broken someone might feel, it's never too late to embrace their mission. Every moment is a new chance, Luna would say, her voice filled with conviction. Choose love. Let your light shine.